I think. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I did it the first time on my own. So there's 19 or 20 children, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. And I've taught and I've been in rooms with like 300 students and I can control the room, no problem at all. Absolutely no chance for these little 5-year-olds running around.
Hey guys, and welcome to the SkilledDad podcast. My name is Zach Reeser. I'm your host. If this is your first time, I want to say welcome. And if you're one of the SkilledDad Society members coming back for another one, hey, we're going to have some fun today, just like each day. And I'm glad that you are here. This is our podcast where we sit down and talk with other dads who are sharing their journey, sharing their experience. And I've got a gentleman on here with me today. We had a chance to catch up a couple weeks ago. We just finished talking about how organized we are, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret for those of you that are actually watching. Two things. One, behind me, this is not a Zoom background. I actually use these tools. Two, I am not actually this organized. I mean, I am with this behind me, but if you were to see around me, it's Christmas time. I've got stuff down from the loft. It's a mess, but we're going to get cleaned up soon enough once we find the Santa suit. So, and this episode, I hope, comes out before Christmas. If not, you know what I mean, because you're putting all the stuff back up. So that's good. But today, I have a fellow dad with me. Fellow dad, entrepreneur, somebody doing some big things, and also doing some big things across the pond. We've had a couple of fine gentlemen joining us from the UK area, and Mr. Nick Clement. Is it? Oh my gosh, I just realized. Is it Clement? Or Clement?
Clement, yeah. Yeah, Clement, yeah.
I was going to put like a fancy twang on it. We've talked so much and I didn't even ask the proper pronunciation of your last name. I just assumed. Shame on me.
Clement.
Well, Nick, welcome to the SkilledDad podcast. I'm glad you're here and I'm excited for the conversation we're going to have.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So, if you can't see, which if you're listening, you can't see it, but he's got a nice polar bear sweater on. And it's December at time of recording, and I wish I had that polar bear sweater because it's a little chilly. But we're getting close to Christmas. And do you have all your stuff ready to go? Like you guys, rock and roll over there?
No, we're getting there. We've still got quite a few packages and things like that to arrive. As always, you never feel fully prepared, do you?
That's true, actually. Yeah. Now, are you prepared for the kids, but maybe not for your wife? Or is that just me projecting completely?
Not exactly the situation. Things have been ordered, but I think I'm still waiting on a couple of things to come through.
Yeah. Not to put you on the spot, but I did. So, yeah, if she listens to it, you're thinking of her. That's the main thing here. You're getting it done.
I planned ahead. I did plan ahead this time. I was a couple of weeks better off, but you never know with deliveries, do you?
No, you don't. You absolutely don't. And depending on here in the U.S. with storms that are going on, sometimes that can impact it. They're generally pretty good. So anybody that's out there delivering packages, I want to say thank you because you're making it happen for all of us dads who wait last minute to get something. So Nick, just so we can kind of fill everybody in the conversations that we've had, your dad, and let's start there. How many kids you got?
Two boys, one who's just turned 6 recently, the 7th of December. I had to try and remember the date then. It's confusing, I'll explain why. And then my youngest then is 3. So 2 boys, but they both had the same due date. One was 6 weeks premature, and the other was 3 days late, I think. So all of these dates that I have are just completely confused in my brain. And it takes a lot for me to remember their birthday. Sounds awful, but there's a reason now why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, same due date, but didn't land that way. That would have been super easy.
It would have. I know.
And also very expensive.
About a massive party. And the problem is, it's Christmas time as well. So it's 7th of December, Christmas, 14th of January. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Wow. You are stacked. So you just save up money throughout the year just to unload on the month of December and January. Sounds like.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's a shame really because it's so close, the 7th of December, and then you got Christmas straight after. It doesn't feel quite the same, but presents are presents.
Presents are presents. That's right. And it's about who you're with, right? In the holiday season.
Yeah, that's
about
Christmas should be about that.
I'll tell you what, we don't do a whole lot of, like, we do a few things for our kids. And maybe there's like one bigger gift in there, but it's not like this large quantity of stuff. We stopped doing that a few years ago because two reasons. One, a lot of the stuff, they love it and then they leave it rather quickly. That's number one. Number two, the grandparents unload on them with things. So we're like, you know what? They get stuff all year long. And most recently, there was my youngest, it's like 3.5 right now. He started going down the I want thing. And I was like, nah. Like for us, we're going to try to move away from just this just being, this is the time where I get exactly what I want, and try to refocus it back on, being together and family and fun, because relatively speaking, the kids are spoiled in some ways throughout the year. You know what I mean? So anyway, appreciate you listening to my small therapy session before I get into Christmas here, as we get the I wants. So you've got two, both fairly young, so you're rocking and rolling with that. And you also, from a background career standpoint, were an educator, and now over the last couple of years have become an entrepreneur, still in that same space. But you've been working around and with kids for quite some time now. Is that accurate?
A decade, 10 years. Yeah, that's why I'm really happy.
I get it. Yeah. So you've been around that, and then so tell us about kind of what you're doing, and we want to incorporate just some of your experiences as dad, but then also what you're doing, because you're helping a lot of other kids in different ways, and have been, as you said, for over a decade. So I'm just going to hand the mic over to you. Tell us about yourself, and we'll just dive in from there.
Yeah, okay. So, as I said, a primary school teacher. I think is it elementary school with you? Children aged 3 to 10, 11. I know you have different schools as well, the new structure. But I was mainly working with the older children, so usually it'd be 7 to 10, around that age. I did work with the younger children for a number of years. This whole new curriculum came in, and I was very passionate about it. I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity for you as a school to do what you want to do, and you can justify why you want to do it. But the school kind of decided to go their own way. And then I fell back into disagreeing completely with the educational system that we have. And it's very weird being in a position where an occupation where you completely disagree with the system, but you still carry on anyway, feels odd, and doesn't feel like it's rewarding as it should be, even though you are making a difference to some children's lives. So I just thought, well, surely I can do something like this myself. Surely I can find something that we go into schools and we deliver education the way that I think it should be. So the initial idea was to go in, we'd have specialist teachers in different areas, and then we would teach the children that specialist, whether it's science, performing arts, soccer, sports, whatever it is. But I noticed straight away that children across Wales, here in the UK, were suffering with confidence issues. So there's a lot of anxiety. This was just after COVID as well. So 2022 it began. So I had a rethink and a rebrand, and we named the company Confident Healthy Individuals. So still kind of doing the same thing, but every project would have a well-being theme of some kind. So it'd still be thematic, like The Greatest Showman or Lion King or whatever it is, but well-being would be at the forefront. So we'd aim to make children more confident, less anxious, teach them CBT strategies, mindfulness, etc. And then from there, it's kind of grown into an umbrella company. So just in the 2 years, nearly 3 years now, next year coming up, we have holiday clubs, series of mindfulness books for children. So we have 2, but there's going to be 5 coming out. We've got to deal with digital publishers. And something I'm passionate about, a bit of a side project that I'm doing, is mental health first aid, kind of, but for secondary school, for high school, students. So that's 14 to 17 or 13 to 17. So that's ongoing as well. So quite a lot.
That is a lot. With the 2 youngins at home. So how big's your team? That's a lot of things you're doing.
Yeah, I'm the person that's like the one-man band doing all the different things, but then we have quite a lot of people working in the holiday club. So I'd say there's about 10, 12 of us all together.
Yeah. No, that's great. You had mentioned CBT. What is CBT for those that don't know?
So it's cognitive brain therapy. So there's a variety of different things that you can use CBT for. But what I found very useful is reframing negative thoughts, understanding your behavior. So there's a book called The Chimp Paradox, and that's by Professor Stephen Peters. Now, I went through that difficult time where I just completely was disheartened with my occupation. And during that time, my stepfather, who was like a dad to me, brought me up from a very early age. He passed away with his battle with cancer. So I went through that bout of depression, never having any kind of mental health issues really before, or completely unaware of anyway. And I came across CBT and I came across that book, and I don't even know how I came across it. And that has helped me just completely rewire my brain and understand my thoughts and beliefs and my emotions. So very simply, if we break it down, you'll have three parts of your brain. It gets more complicated than this, but he's broke it down into this theory. The computer, the memory, and the chimp. Now, he calls a certain part of the brain the chimp. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but let's just assume it's a chimp. That chimp is 6 times stronger than the human part, and it wants to keep us safe. So it does horrible things to our body to put us in the fight-flight response, to get us out of those horrible situations. So that's why people feel anxious and feel the way they do sometimes and hate certain situations that they would be in. So the aim of that chimp part of your brain is to keep you safe and to catastrophize, to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a situation where you can harm or hurt yourself. So that part of your brain thinks it's a life and death situation when we know it's not. It could be public speaking, it could be going to meet someone, it could be some people picking up the phone and talking to someone. So CBT, and I dived into it quite a bit, and I think I've read the book 3 or 4 times now, because it's one of those you need to read over a few times. It's just helped me understand why I'm feeling the emotions that I'm feeling, where I feel those emotions that I'm feeling, and what am I going to do about those emotions and not let the emotions control my thoughts. So counteracting it with logic instead.
Got it. Is the chimp brain similar to what some would call the lizard brain? Kind of the primal zone?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, survival mode. That's exactly it. Yeah. So what the thing with it is we are now in a society where we don't really need that part of our brain. We do a little bit, don't we, in situations, but it's still there from a long time ago.
Right. In most cases, there's no lions chasing us.
Yeah.
But we might feel like they are, for a variety of reasons. Like in the morning when you have a podcast and then one of your kids has a big fever and the other 2 have projects to get to school. No, I'm just kidding. I have a friend. He told me. So that's interesting. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because you mentioned CBT, and I had read some of that with what you're doing with it, and also want to make clarification: CBT, not CBD.
Yes,
Both have to do
definitely
with
not CBD. I have tried CBD before, but that's another podcast altogether.
That's a different podcast altogether. It's CBD oils, all those things. But no, so your primary age is you're working both with what we would call elementary or primary school, all the way up to now working as well with the teens.
Yeah.
From your perspective, because I mean, we know that with 2020 and all that transpired after that, it just shifted some of the dynamics that were going on in schools. And then in modern day, you hear a lot about kind of the anxiety and, just restlessness that kids are dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Being a dad and having a household full of kids, we've got 3, and we just had this discussion last night. When we had 2, you're in man to man and you're balanced. When you have 3, it feels like we have a party everywhere. So we have a group, it's like a small tribe of people that we're just pouncing around. So I see it every day, but what have you seen in the last 4, almost 5 years now? It's crazy. As you're working with families and you're working with kids, like what are you seeing with kids? And obviously you're focused on a certain field, but yeah, like what's your observations?
Again, it's a tricky question, isn't it? Because a lot of people want to blame it on COVID. A lot of people want to blame issues on technology, the environment we live in, etc. But there's definitely an increase in anxiety of different mental health issues. And it could be a variety of factors. We just know that there is there is an increase. And it could be that we're more aware of it and we can diagnose ourselves better. What is quite worrying at the minute, especially if you've got teenagers of a certain age, is on TikTok, there's these people that are saying, if you've got this, you've got ADHD. If you've got this symptom, you've got, which is quite worrying, because if you've got teenagers running around labeling themselves with ADHD when they might have traits of ADHD, or they might feel anxious, or they might have low mood. But there's a big difference between having a low mood and being depressed. It's quite stark, isn't it?
Yeah, that's frightening. I remember when, I guess, search engines became more of a thing. And there was at least the circle that I was in that said, if you got a headache, don't necessarily Google it, because you're going to walk away thinking you got a brain tumor. And so, with this window into a world where everyone's opinion is a form of truth or an opinion, it's like the self-diagnoses. That sounds scary.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And I'm just curious if you've seen anything recede since that. So like the first couple of years after 2020, there's a lot of figuring stuff out, a lot of shifting in what schools did, depending on where you were in the world. The world looked very different for a lot of people, even here in the U.S. Like state by state, looked very different.
Yeah.
Have you seen that kind of go back the other way at all and kind of go recede a little bit because of that initial anxiety and unknowns?
No, I think we haven't addressed what the issue is. I think it's very much like, oh, yeah, we're just gonna crack on. And I found it really difficult during COVID. I remember I went through a stage here. They locked up all the public parks. We were only allowed to go for a walk twice a day or once a day. I can't remember what it was now. And they policed it extremely well as well. We thought we'll drive to the beach one day and have a walk. And I remember there being police there, and we were worried we were going to have a fine or whatever. And actually, my next door neighbour had a fine for having a party. I remember. Yeah, I found it extremely difficult. And if I'm a grown man and children haven't had that opportunity to express how they felt, it was quite a big deal, wasn't it? I think we tend to forget quite easily, and we haven't taken the time to ask children and see what is the damaging effects that is had on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Even getting outdoors, I think, is a good thing. Turn off the video games and go play outside. That's a big shift.
As much as possible. I know it's difficult with the weather, but being a teenager now, if you think about it, you've got WhatsApp, you've got streaming things, you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon Prime, you've got gaming, like unbelievable gaming things at your fingertips. There is no reason why you'd want to leave your bedroom, because you socialize from your bedroom, don't you? It must be so difficult for them to stay on task.
I wonder, that's an interesting conversation we found ourselves in, because I think for us, it would be difficult because we know an alternative. But I wonder if it's as difficult because that's norm, potentially. That potentially is more normal. It's like, how many social friends do you have? How many people on, well, they may not be LinkedIn, but like your follower count and all that. It's like these vanity metrics. But at the same time, we know that studies have shown that these younger generations are some of the most lonely generations that we've ever had. Hence, some of these things that we're walking through. I think there's a fascinating irony in that.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Like, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's what they've grown up with. They don't know any different. They've got us parents saying you need to go outside, you need to go outside. But yeah, if that environment isn't part of your natural nature, then it becomes really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. At the flip side, as you say that, as us as parents, because I'm always, when we're on the podcast, I love hearing like other guys' experiences and their journeys and what they've learned, what they've found that works well. And sometimes you find what works well by not doing something well. But as you say that, we're talking about being outside. If they're out playing video games, someone put the video game in their hand, which would be us. So like you have younger kids, I've got younger, my oldest is now getting into that different stage. But I recently had a conversation where someone was breaking down the concept that a lot of habits are going to be formed in the kiddos by age 9 and 10. So if we have anything to say about it, which we do, or do about it? What are some things that we can do? Like, hey, instead of just hanging out watching having a family movie night, maybe we're going to do a family hike, or like getting that exposure to the alternatives before it gets to the time where, hey, I'm just going to lock myself in my room and play video games all day. And I don't know about you, but like I grew up with both because like
Yeah.
Nintendo,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, towards the end it became like real cool. But I mean, we're talking like, you know, Contra, which I don't even know if did you play Contra, like old school
We
Nintendo?
had the Mega Drive over here. There's Mega Drive, then PlayStation 1.
Okay, Mega Drive. What is that? I don't even know about that.
Right. It was amazing. It was one of the first consoles that had like Sonic and all that kind of stuff on it.
Okay, like Sega.
Yeah, that's it. Sega. Yeah, the Sega Mega Drive. That's
Sega.
exactly it. So it was just before the Nintendo 64, I think.
Yeah. Yep. See, now we're getting in that zone. You get Nintendo 64, you get GoldenEye, and then
Yeah, yeah. Still
yeah,
engaged.
proximity mines and the complex. But see, like you can go through these iterations of where we had these video games, and then all of a sudden you've got the Quest or Meta Quest now, I guess, where you're actually in the world with the VR, and it's really interesting. So I'm always thinking through the concept of my parents helped me with getting my dad and I had a great time playing Ninja Gaiden late at night, and I remember that, and it was fun, but it wasn't like all the time.
Yeah.
And now we're got these little things around that are all the time. How do we choose to navigate that? And that's the interesting
Yeah, it's
dilemma.
extremely difficult. It's difficult question, isn't it? Like you said, you do need to do little things, but I think building habits is more important. So it's like Sunday, whatever it is, we do that, whatever, so say it's soccer training or whatever, we do go to soccer training. If it's a walk after food, you do go for a walk. So you're kind of saying, this is what we've always done, this is what we are going to do. So something that we are finally starting up is called winter welly walks. So on top of Chi Education, I'm a director of a charity called Confident, Healthy, Active Me, which has just gone live the last month. So we're hoping we can help more families by doing different projects around there, get people. So one of them is that Winter Welly Walk. So we go to an amazing park, little park. We meet up, have an hour walk, and then there'll be some kind of workshop afterwards surrounding mental health.
That's awesome. Have you seen good participation so far?
We haven't started it yet, so that's one of the projects. It's starting, I think after Christmas will be the first one.
Okay, I missed that. That's starting out here soon. Well, hey, for my contingent in the UK, look Nick up because I know there's a lot of you. And go check it out. Get some walks going.
Yeah, we need lots of likes and followers so we can get funded.
There you go. That funding is always good. But before that, even just starting it, it's amazing to see when there's an option and people find out about it, they'll dive in because I think there's a lot of people that have more desires and needs than as many people doing something about it. Which is why I love everyone that listens to this podcast, because this is a group of doers and action takers and excited people, and I love it. Well, let me switch gears a little bit because we had talked. We mentioned that you've been in the education space for over a decade. You've worked with a lot of different kids and families from different backgrounds, socioeconomically, education-wise, like all around. And so you started in that space before your dad, and then you became a dad. And I'm curious, just kind of from your dad experience, did that shift your outlook at all and how you perceive things and how you acted in the education space?
Yeah, I was a dad towards the last year of my teaching, I think. So straight away my teaching practice changed because I had more empathy and sympathy with parents. And probably one of the big reasons why I left the teaching profession is you were obviously working 5 days a week and you're working overtime, which you're not going to be getting paid for. You're going in an hour earlier to work. You're staying 2 hours after work that you're not getting paid for. And you've got endless amount of other activities that you need to be doing. Yeah, one of the reasons was probably thinking, well, actually, what time am I going to have spending with my boys? I can't just go on holiday when I want because I'm contracted to be in that school. So we are now able to have 2 holidays or possibly even more holidays for the price that we were paying before for the one, because obviously holidays are far more expensive in the summer holidays. So they were a key part of my decision. But it has made me think differently and be a bit more understanding, I think.
It's amazing how that'll shift your look on other parents
Yeah,
when
it
you
does,
become
doesn't
one.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you bring up kind of the being a dad with somebody else that you don't really know, it can totally shift the discussion and even the connection in the relationship, because you and I have something in common that we can understand some things about each other that maybe someone else can't, right? If they're not in that, if they don't have kids, and it can really be an interesting catalyst for both in, business and everything. It's just kind of like you have that thing in common. So
Yeah,
use that.
I say the same thing about having one child and two children as well,
Mm-hmm.
because I'll speak to people and say one child is an absolute dream compared to two. Two is a game changer. So I don't know what three is like.
And at this point, he can lick stuff off the floor, and we're like, you're probably going to be okay. Whereas if my first one had done that, you're like, whoa, 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 don't do that, don't do that. It's
Yeah,
I don't know if
we
I
have a
don't.
saying you wrap them in cotton wool, didn't you? Your first ones, and then my second one is my youngest is mad. He's amazing. Don't get me wrong, his behavior is very good, but he's on the go all the time. They're just completely different.
Uh-huh. Well, think about that. I mean, they have to compete for a resource that the first one didn't have to, which is time.
Yeah.
So the first one got the attention, got the time, doing your thing, and then a couple years later, they lose some of that time, and the other one has to try to gain that time. Uh, the nice thing with the three, in case you guys are thinking about it, I'm just saying, is the older ones can do chores, and they can also help with the third. Hence the little tribe. Everybody works together. It's nice. What so as after you became dad, you've got the empathy and understanding kind of shifted maybe some of the ways you approached your work life.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that you've run into that's been a nice like unexpected as after becoming dad? You've had 6 years now, some things run up, you're like, okay, I didn't expect that one, but boom, here it is.
I've become the soccer coach, the football coach. Is anyway. He's the eldest, under six. That was nothing I really planned. I don't think anyone was stepping forward. Yes, so that was quite nice, and just um seeing them develop, it just goes so quick, doesn't it? That's what I've been surprised with the most, is that as soon as you have children, for some reason, time just seems to absolutely fly.
It does. Luckily, we start to look younger as they get older. It's a great paradox. But how long have you been coaching?
3 months, 4 months, I think. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And I did it the first time on my own. So there's 19 or 20 children, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. And I've taught, and I've been in rooms with like 300 students, and I can control the room, no problem at all. Absolutely no chance for these little 5-year-olds running around. They're so spaced out. They're emotionally completely immature because they're five. Of course, they're going to be, couldn't kick a ball, couldn't even concentrate and listen to one-step instructions. So
Mm-hmm.
it was so difficult. Still difficult now, but I'm getting better.
Yeah. Are you still doing it by yourself, or did somebody step in to help you?
But yeah, there's 3, 4 of us now. Thank goodness. Otherwise, I would have. I don't know what I would have done.
You would have been fine. And then the next season, you're rocking and rolling, ready for another one. So for anybody that's listening, that's in sports, that's not coaching, be a coach. It's like the most rewarding thing, and also like you don't have to be head coach. I'm just throwing it out there. So I've coached. We were doing the math. It was like 8 or 9 like seasons. So twice a year we do either baseball, soccer, football, or we just finished arena. I think I told you about this when we were talking. We just finished this indoor arena soccer, and it's like a mix. It was like a mixture of hockey and soccer. In 45 minutes, the clock does not stop unless someone's like truly injured. I don't even think it stopped then. And we only had 6 games. But I'll tell you what, after so many seasons of coaching teams and seeing that development, my favorite thing to do or that I get to witness is at the beginning of the season, you see where everybody is. Some people never played, they step in. You see some that have been around for a while. Now we're talking about U10, so 9 and 10-year-olds. And by the beginning of the season to the end, it's like this transformation, and it's phenomenal. It's awesome. And as a coach, just to speak frankly, like this is why I get passionate about guys, dads stepping in. If there's no head coach, be that guy. If you think you're not equipped, you are equipped because you're stepping in, and the kids need that. There are some kids that don't have dads at home. And so I can now typically tell when that's the case. And there's an interesting, you're not fulfilling a role, but you are serving as a positive male figure for those boys. And that's really important. And so I'm passionate about that and appreciate whenever somebody steps in to be a coach. And if you don't want to be a head coach, step in and help Nick, because the head coach needs some help too.
And that's really important, because you might think that the coach has got it all together and you might see them for that little bit, but any support that they can get is amazing. And again, you're a really good role model to your child that's there then as well, because they've seen you step up to the mark and support somebody else. So that goes a long way.
Yeah, you're right. I've asked him before, I was like, do you want me to not coach this season? Because maybe you'll get more from somebody else. And he's like, we were a great coach. I was like, well, I appreciate that. So I did step into an assistant role for 2 seasons, and we ended up basically like co-coaching the whole season. But there was one season where this is 2 seasons ago in baseball, and the head coach and the gentleman with him, the kind of the main assistant coach, they have coached for a while, and they had the whole system down. And it was awesome to be able to sit back and watch. It was hard for me to be assistant coach because I was like, what do I do with my hands? Because usually I'm kind of running the show.
Yeah.
But it's a great way to learn from other guys. So like step in as an assistant with somebody that has coached before, and you can learn a lot of things. And my son gets no favoritism. So he's equal on the field. It's like, it's a coach hat versus a dad hat. Sometimes it's probably harder for him. I don't know if that's the same case for you.
Yeah, it's exactly the same for me. His behavior, well, it's not behavior as such, but he's one of the worst ones that I've got to try and keep on task, because he still sees me as dad. And we haven't started matches yet against we've had a couple of friendlies, but we haven't started the league yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll focus them a bit more. But yeah, he thinks he can get away with murder. So sometimes he has to just take a little 2 minutes out before he can come back in.
Uh-huh. Well, when the other kids find out that you're the dad, which they probably know now, and they see your son doing laps, they're like, well, if he's going to do it to him, he's probably going to do it to me. So sometimes that helps. True. Well, hey, if you ever run into like one of those coaching zones with kids, like what in the world do I do? Feel free to call me up, because I started in 4-year-old all the way up to now 10. And I may not know, but I can at least listen, because it's one of those where sometimes you just turn your head. And one last thing for you parents, sometimes the most difficult thing in coaching these teams is you. So enjoy, step in and help, but then also like, don't be a YouTube parent on the sideline, please. Because the coaches are the ones that are tasked with making sure that, we keep it on the level, so to speak. So, appreciate that in advance. Small request.
It's tricky, isn't it? Trying to find that balance. That's something that I'm talking now with the other coaches, are having fun, but also again, it is practice, and it doesn't need to be competitive. But again, they are 5 years old, so it's like it'll come, and everything takes time. That's what I'm at. Like I said, they could hardly kick the ball when we first started. They couldn't even go in the right direction. At least we're all going one way now.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. You turn from the blob to actually kids running plays. When you get to that point, it's a magical thing. It's a lot of fun. Oh my gosh. Well, Nick, all right. Last question I've got for you. All right. So there's dads of all ages listening to this podcast. And for somebody that's maybe newer to dad life, maybe they're expecting, or they've got a baby at home, just one, maybe they're about to have 2. You've been down that road. What, nice advice or nugget would you leave for them as they're listening to this podcast?
Well, I refer back to the story when my eldest was about 1. So again, it was just during COVID time, and just after COVID time. I was in that frame of mind where I felt just angry all the time, disheartened, in a horrible place. And I was on a good salary, obviously being a teacher over here, very good salary. And there comes a point where you think to yourself, well, is this the person that I want to be? Yes, I'm secure financially, but I'm not spending the time with the children. I'm angry. I'm sad all the time. Sometimes just take a look at your situation, your environment that you're in, and think, is it worth it? And if it is, then absolutely amazing. You can do little tweaks here and there, kind of to change your perspective and maybe change things and say no sometimes to certain situations. And if it isn't, then just really think hard. Is it time that you made a change and did something different?
Good words. It's always good to evaluate on where we are. We like to say that in order for us to be the best protectors and fighters for them, we have to make sure we're in the fight.
You can't pour from an empty cup. That's what my motto is.
Yep. That's a good one. And then talk to more dads like Nick. Like Nick and I are having just a good conversation. That'll help fill your cup up. If you're not doing it, I recommend doing it, because you can find out you're not the only one that's going crazy on the soccer field with a bunch of 5-year-olds. Just saying.
Yeah.
Nick, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing? For my UK brethren out there that are closer to you, or even somebody over here in the US that's looking to learn some more, where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. So if you type in Nick Clement, Chi Education, which is CHI, you'll see me on there. But if not, the best website would be www.chieducation.co.uk.
Awesome. I'll include that in the show notes, and hopefully you'll see a little blurb over Nick's head that also has that. So you can, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see it. Hey, oh, that's perfect. I'll just do it right there. But Nick, I really appreciate you jumping in here with me, taking the time, sharing about your story, and also helping equip other dads with, just some of the things that you've learned so they can apply it to their life. So thank you for being on, man.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, Merry Christmas, even if it's after Christmas when this comes out.
It'll be before we know it. Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. All right. I hope you don't get coal in your stocking. I'm sure you won't. All right, Nick. See you soon. Thanks. Well, guys, if you've made this far of the podcast, I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. And it always feels like it's kind of like when you have kids. Nick mentioned you have kids, and then time goes so fast. Being on this podcast is time. It feels like we've been on here for 10 minutes. That's just a sign of a great conversation. And I've really enjoyed and appreciate what Nick has brought to the table and what he's doing. And if anything, there's a lot of points that we could take away from Nick's story and also the changes he made, but there's a lot of action in his life and what he shared. There's a lot of things that he's doing to go and help make a difference, both for himself, but also for others. And if you've got those little ideas in your brain, you don't necessarily have to entire career to go do it. Start small. If you go back to Scott Johnson's episode, the Getmo, right? It's good enough to move on, get it out there, and you never know what's going to blossom from that. But when stories like Nick, guess what? There's guys around you in your community that have these stories that you can learn from. I always encourage you to dive in, start some conversations, find that commonality as dads, especially if you see a guy with other kids, come from it. But what I do hope comes from this podcast is that you can take something and apply it to your life on your journey to becoming the skilled dad.